I thought it might be fun to try adding a second camera angle while filming the assembly of some outrageously tiny houses. I bought these kits from a seller on Etsy a few years ago, and only put together a couple of pieces before I managed to get distracted by something else. I'll be making the 3 houses in the middle of the picture in this video. These kits, and others, were available in a range of scales, and of course I chose the 2 smallest sizes available. The houses I'm making here are 2000 scale. I also have a set that's 4000 scale, but I'll tackle that challenge another day. Since these are somewhere between 4 and 5 millimeters wide at 2000 scale, that means they'd be around 8 to 10 meters wide at full scale. The pieces were a little tricky to remove. There were tiny points where they were still connected at the corners, and I found it was necessary to cut the corners to prevent the thin wood from splintering when I popped the pieces out of the panel. The connected points were easier to see from the back, which is the side that doesn't have any laser-etched details on it. Since I opted for a suede matte board background for filming purposes, I had to pull in the little bag that the kit was stored in to apply the glue without making a mess of it. I didn't think that part of the process through very well. The bag skittered around the entire time and made gluing more difficult than it otherwise would have been. The glue I'm using is just white craft glue that I put in a small, fine-tipped squeezy bottle. I was hoping the second camera would help in showing what the assembly process is like for tiny things like this. I'm currently filming all my videos on my phone, and borrowed a GoPro from my brother to get the second view. With my phone zoomed in enough to actually see the itty-bitty pieces of wood, you can't really see what my hands are doing, or get much of a sense of how small the houses really are. So hopefully, the second camera angle can offer a broader perspective, even though it's crammed into a little box in the corner. What you're not seeing, because I edited all of them out, are all the times that I pulled the pieces I was working on completely out of frame for both cameras, and went into Gollum mode, crouched on my chair, holding it right up to my face so I could see it better. That's normally how I would work on any miniature project, so forcing myself to work with the pieces on the table is always a bit of a challenge. I can't even hunch close to the table because that's where the camera is. Doesn't stop me from trying it occasionally and crashing into the camera. The camera bumps also get edited out. Mostly. At this point, the GoPro decided it was done. And since these smaller houses didn't end up fitting well on the chopsticks, we'll just zoom through the making of this one. This ever so slightly larger house ended up being the best fit on the top of a chopstick. The color of the wood also ended up being a really good match, so I didn't have to paint anything to make it look finished. I'm not sure paint would be a very good idea on these anyway, since it would probably cover up the details. Perhaps a transparent coloring medium, like alcohol ink markers, would be worth a shot. But the wood might soak it in too much. I'd rather keep them plain than risk it. That makes this a fairly short and simple project, which is just what I needed after I ran into some setbacks starting the bigger project I had planned. In addition to the crash course that I'm getting in filming and editing as I make these videos, I'm learning the value of having a few small projects ready to go. Not necessarily in a literal sense, although that is the case here, but in more of a, these storming lampshade dice are taking 10 times longer than I planned for, sort of sense. And the GoPro is back, just in time to catch the final details of this little house, which basically consists of 2 roof pieces and a chimney, which is probably half as interesting as the rest of it. So you get twice the coverage of my struggle with the porch roof, or whatever this is. I'm going with enclosed porch. And after adding the tiny little stick of a chimney, It's time for some bigger sticks. It may be a little difficult to see on camera, but one of these chopsticks has a slightly domed top and the other does not, because I already trimmed it off. Turns out the shape is made by just a little dab of resin on the otherwise flat top of the stick, which was ideal for my purposes because I just had to carefully trim the resin cap off. No need for sanding. Yay! This left me with a perfectly smooth, flat surface on which to glue my absurdly tiny houses. I used wood glue for this part and put a little too much on at first, but the excess was easily removed with a bit of paper towel. After I found out it was too much by attempting to stick the house on. Oops. Tiny dabs of glue for tiny things. Who knew? On the second stick, I ended up using the house that I had already made off camera, which I set next to the quarter at the beginning of the video, and a weird little archway, which I also made off camera after discovering that neither of the smaller houses I made in this video would fit well. They were too small on their own and too big together. I'm really not a fan of the arch, but it fits the space, so on it goes. After some adjustments and wiping off the glue squeeze out, and then a few more adjustments. Okay, that's probably enough adjusting. They just needed to dry for a while. And then I trimmed off the tiniest bit of the corners of the bases, which I probably should have done before gluing them on. This is to make the shape of the bases match the top of the chopstick a little better. Then I wrapped the sticks in paper and tape so that I could spray some clear coat on the little house tops to seal and protect them. And it probably helps hold the little pieces together too. One spray later, and I just have to remove the paper.